In my last video, last week, I discussed at some length how the Tibetan government in exile was no longer a potent force and becoming increasingly irrelevant in terms of its effect on the politics in China. Little did I know that even as I was recording it, there was an event taking place that really illustrated this in spades. Welcome back to the Sampan Viking channel. This is a special video. I hadn't intended making this one. I was going to be talking about war on China, but when something important does happen, I think it only makes sense to give it full attention. But it won't be a very long video. Between Wednesday and Friday of last week, which was the 21st to 23rd of July, President Xi of China visited Tibet and made several ceremonial visits over the course of that 2-3 day period. No notice was given to this visit beforehand, and details were only made public after the visit had concluded. The reaction from the Western press was to claim that they didn't dare release any information because the Chinese are so unpopular in Tibet. Well, you would expect that to be said, but it does also mask a far more important and far more severe reality. And this I will come to shortly. Just quickly to recap what I was saying in the video last week about Tibet. The Tibetan government in exile, which has been in exile for 70 odd years now, 60 years, sorry, is a movement with a very high-profile, internationally recognized leader. But despite that, and despite being at odds with China at a time when China was at its most weak and volatile in those early days, the 50s, the 60s, and of course going through into the 80s, early 90s, and all the various upheavals and transformations were taking place, he still managed to make no difference to the politics of China. He was still unable to make a major presence within China itself. Now, my other point was to say is that the Dalai Lama is now a very old man. He will soon be dead, and with his death, the mantle of Dalai Lama will move on. And without the Dalai Lama, with the Tibetan government in exile in Dharamsala, all relevance and importance to this clique that are in India will end. I could not have dreamed, or I would not dare to have claimed just how strong that truth is. And this became very clear last week when President Tsai went to Tibet. He went for a 2-3 day visit. It was a ceremonial visit. He met groups, civil and military, a lot of pageantry, a lot of events. He visited Patola Palace, amongst other places. He visited art centres, schools, hospitals, I believe. Quite a lot of people rather than being secret, rather a lot of people will have been fully aware that this meeting was taking place. Hundreds of people had to be prepared. There was significant coordination, both in the civil and the military section. And the great takeaway that we have from this is that the Tibetan government in exile didn't have a clue it was going on. Now, I'll just think about that for a minute. This is the organization that claims to be the true leaders of Tibet, those to whom most Tibetans owe their affection and fealty, to the Dalai Lama and his supporters. Yet, on what was the most momentous visit to the province in decades, they did not have a clue it was going on. And in fact, they've told us effectively that their intelligence on Tibet is gleaned from websites, news media, social media, and government briefings in Beijing. What an incredible humiliation that admission must be. Because the people who are the true leaders, self-styled true leaders of Tibet, have absolutely no intelligence presence within the actual establishment of the Tibetan regional government. That is a real blow. And you can't pretend that simply that they did know about it and were simply keeping their powder dry for something else. What else is there? They've got a very old, if highly recognizable leader, somebody with the sort of the leadership recognition of, say, a Nelson Mandela or a Gandhi or whatever, maybe even an Aung Suu Kyi. But but even with that, they didn't have a clue what was going on. I know you could say, well, maybe they did have a clue, but they just didn't want to commit people because it was too dangerous to do anything inside of Tibet itself, inside of China. But again, that doesn't ring true either. If you have that kind of intelligence, you've got a network of supporters not only inside China, supposedly, but you have a lot outside of China as well. This is all about, for an organization like Free Tibet and the Tibetan Government in Exile, is all about making a high media profile to show that they are relevant, that they are still followed in any significant way, at least outside the country, but more specifically inside the country. And they should have known it was happening, and they should have responded accordingly to humiliate the strong man of China, President Xi, on his visit to territory which they regard as theirs. Um, and it didn't happen. This should have been protests in Tibet following him around. There should have been protests in every major Western capital about the Chinese occupation, as they call it. And there was absolutely nothing, just a whimper when it was revealed in Chinese state media that President Xi had been conducting ceremonial visits inside Tibet for the last 2 to 3 days. It's almost sad. Um, the Tibetan Government in Exile, Free Tibet, clearly is an organization that has absolutely no political relevance left. They have no sympathizers, no moles, no apparatchiks loyal to them within any part of the structure of the Tibetan government. Had there been, this news would have got back. It wasn't a secret, it just wasn't being publicized. You cannot have these sort of large ceremonial visits and not enough people know what's going on for that news not to leak down to all levels and for that to leak out very important information to leak back to the Tibetan government in exile over the border in India. Uh, the fact that they knew nothing really does mean that this is an organization that has not unfit for purpose, it has no purpose. Whatever purpose it may have had has ceased, and as soon as the Dalai Lama, the current Dalai Lama, is deceased, it will have no function whatsoever, and there'll be very little point in trying to keep it along. This will not be lost on their funders and handlers inside the American establishment. They do like to get some bang for their buck, and if all they're doing now is to keep a handful of dissidents in a very comfy lifestyle in the foothills in India, I don't think they're going to be very pleased with it. This is an organization that's well and truly on its way out. This they should have known. This they should have acted on. This they totally failed to do. And it just proves that this front is now well and truly finished. And any other noises at the end, as I said, though sure they will when the current Dalai Lama dies, will just be a last hurrah and purely for Western consumption. But following on the heels of this PR disaster that they've just had, it will be empty noise and rhetoric, and I doubt if very many people outside of particularly trendy sections of the media will give it much notice at all. I said it was a short video. It is. Thank you very much for listening. It's an important topic. I think it does show exactly how things are changing inside China in regards to dissidents and subversive activity and how it really doesn't have any traction. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, please subscribe, please ring the bell, and please leave a comment. I'd like to hear what you think, and always ready with a new channel to listen to good advice, other than to get off, obviously, and take on board things that people have to say, and to answer any useful questions. Next, the video will be about on the war in China, and I hope to have at least the first part of that, if not in full, by the end of this week. Thank you very much.